Welcome to this explainer. You know, India is the fifth largest economy in the world, yet there's a glaring empty seat at the international financial table. We literally have zero homegrown global audit giants. Today, we're unpacking a massive, high-stakes structural shift that's happening right now to change exactly that. Let's kick things off with a stat that's just staggering. Fewer than 1% of accounting firms in India have more than 10 partners. Think about that for a second. In an economy growing as incredibly fast as India's, the vast majority of its domestic talent is siloed into tiny, hyper-fragmented operations. And that massive fragmentation is exactly why the highest levels of government are now stepping in. The Prime Minister's office recently convened a high-level meeting chaired by the Principal Secretary to the PM, Shaktikanta Das. The whole point? To figure out what's holding domestic firms back and map out a strategy to build homegrown audit giants that can genuinely go toe-to-toe with the global Big Four, EY, KPMG, PwC, and Deloitte. So in this explainer, we're covering 1. The Big Four dominance, 2. The Indian fragmentation problem, 3. The strategic imperative, 4. The regulatory reform blueprint, 5. Overcoming growth hurdles, and finally, 6. India's global vision. Let's jump right into Section 1, the Big Four dominance and the reality of the market. The concentration of power at the top is just wild. As of March 2025, a mere 6 audit firms handled 326 of the 483 Nifty 500 companies. That is an absolutely enormous slice of the pie going straight to a tiny handful of multinational players. Securing 67% of the Nifty 500 audits in the 2024 fiscal year means the lion's share of major enterprise and public company revenues in India are captured by foreign headquartered networks. So why does this matter to us? Well, it means the bulk of domestic corporate wealth, professional fees, and incredibly sensitive economic data are being managed by foreign entities, rather than staying right here in the domestic economy. Moving on to Section 2, the Indian fragmentation problem and its heavily fragmented ecosystem. According to the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, there is a brilliant workforce out there, but it's totally trapped in a scattered system. Out of over 100,000 registered CA firms across the country, only 459 have more than 10 partners. And get this, only 13 have more than 50 partners. It's a crazy paradox, right? Over 100,000 small-scale registered firms against just 13 elite, large-scale domestic ones. Actually, those top 13 firms employ a mere 7% of the total paid assistants and partners. So India is producing hundreds of thousands of top-tier financial professionals, but they're structurally boxed in, unable to build real scale. Which brings us to Section 3, the strategic imperative and the push for economic sovereignty. This whole push, it's not just about grabbing market share. The goals here are absolutely vital. We're talking about reducing reliance on foreign firms for critical government projects, securing economic data sovereignty, keeping high-end domestic talent at home, and ensuring total self-reliance when it comes to national tax policy and digital governance. Because heavy reliance on foreign entities for infrastructure poses genuine strategic vulnerabilities. Think about it. Entrusting our most sensitive sectors like defense, energy, state infrastructure, and major banking records strictly to foreign networks is a massive national data risk. Securing the nation's critical financial records isn't just a business goal, it's a core pillar of modern economic sovereignty. Let's look at how they plan to fix this in Section 4, the regulatory reform blueprint and actionable policies. To bridge this structural gap, regulators are drafting a really powerful blueprint targeted for the March 2026 quarter. They're focusing on 4 major pillars: allowing multidisciplinary practices, creating aggregated structures for easier firm mergers, easing the rules for global alliances, and finally, lifting those historically rigid prohibitions on advertising and branding. Basically, letting these firms actually market themselves. Now, this concept of multidisciplinary practices, or MDPs, is an absolute game changer. Right now, different financial and legal pros are walled off by separate licensing regulators. MDPs will finally allow chartered accountants, company secretaries, lawyers, and cost accountants to team up under a single corporate roof. This is huge because it enables Indian firms to offer the comprehensive one-stop consulting services that make the global Big Four so attractive to massive corporations. But we also have to tackle international expansion barriers. Currently, ICAI rules mandate that all partners in a firm must be Indians. And while that sounds protective on paper, it actively prevents local firms from setting up audit entities in places like the US or UK, where local laws require 51% voting rights to be held by locally qualified professionals. Fixing these strict, outdated mandates is the exact hurdle the new strategy aims to clear, paving the way for true cross-border collaboration. All right, on to Section 5. Overcoming growth hurdles, and a quick reality check. Because, let's be real, Indian firms face a steep climb through 3 structural hurdles. First, they've got to shift those deeply entrenched corporate mandates that explicitly require global brand audits. Second, they need massive capital infrastructure. We're talking heavily leveraging cloud accounting, automated audit tools, and forensic data analytics to scale up operations fast, rather than just relying on linear headcount growth. And third, they have to compete with the massive international compensation packages required to retain top-tier talent. Building a native Big Four is a heavy lift. It's going to require a complete shift in private equity habits and the corporate mindset. The market itself, investors, private equity firms, corporate boards, must actively choose to trust, hire, and champion these newly aggregated domestic firms. Because without actual market adoption, all these fancy policy changes, they just won't reach their full potential. Finally, Section 6, India's global vision and commanding the global stage. This visionary call to action actually dates back to 2017, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi called for establishing 4 big Indian accounting firms that could make up a world Big 8. That ambitious spark, it's finally finding its operational legs through the regulatory overhauls we're expecting this fiscal year. The ultimate goal here is incredibly clear: empower domestic advisory firms to scale globally. By retaining local ownership while expanding into emerging and established markets alike, places like Africa, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and the West, India aims to cement its financial sovereignty. They aren't just looking to protect their home turf. They want to operate smoothly across international borders as highly trusted global brands. Which leaves us with one really crucial question. With this comprehensive policy blueprint arriving by March 2026, will corporate India finally shift its mindset to champion its own native audit giants? The talent is absolutely there, the rules are changing, but until corporate leadership actually hires them, India's seat at the global audit table remains empty. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.